From Yorkshire lad to Burma veteran to national treasure, discover how Captain Tom Moore's simple charity walk at age 99 united Britain and raised $32 million during its darkest pandemic hour. This is the ultimate story proving that heroes come in all ages and that tomorrow really can be a good day.
Narrative: Captain Tom Moore, the centenarian who united a nation in a modest garden in Marston Moreton, Bedfordshire, a frail 99-year-old man with a walking frame began what he thought would be a simple charity walk to raise £1,000 for NHS workers battling COVID-19, completely unaware that his daily laps around his patio would transform him into the most beloved figure in Britain and inspire millions worldwide to believe that age is no barrier to making an extraordinary difference. This wasn't just any elderly gentleman seeking purpose in isolation. This was Captain Tom Moore, whose century of life experience, wartime service, and unshakable optimism would prove that sometimes the smallest gestures can create the biggest miracles. Born on April 30, 1920, in Keighley, Yorkshire, Thomas Moore entered a world still recovering from the Great War, where community spirit and mutual support weren't just values but necessities for survival. His father, Wilfred, worked as a builder, while his mother, Isabella, managed their household with the practical efficiency that characterized working-class families of the era. The Moore family embodied Yorkshire values of hard work, plain speaking, and quiet determination that would shape Tom's character throughout his remarkable century of life. Young Tom's childhood in the Yorkshire Dales instilled in him a deep appreciation for the English countryside and the resilience of rural communities facing economic hardship. The Great Depression of the 1930s taught his generation that prosperity was fragile but that neighbors could be counted on during difficult times. These early lessons about community responsibility and mutual aid would later inspire his instinctive response to the NHS crisis. Nearly a century later, his education at Keighley Grammar School provided a solid foundation in traditional subjects, but Tom's real education came from observing how ordinary people faced extraordinary challenges with dignity and determination. The teachers who influenced him most were those who emphasized character development alongside academic achievement, understanding that young men of his generation would soon face tests that no classroom could fully prepare them for. The outbreak of World War II in 1939 interrupted Tom's planned career in civil engineering as he joined the Duke of Wellington's regiment, beginning military service that would take him from the Yorkshire Dales to the jungles of Burma. His transformation from small-town Yorkshire lad to commissioned officer demonstrated the leadership qualities and unflappable temperament that would serve him well in both military service and his later civilian career. His wartime service in India and Burma exposed him to cultures, climates, and challenges that broadened his perspective while testing his physical and mental resilience. The Burma Campaign was particularly brutal, with British forces fighting Japanese troops in some of the most difficult terrain and conditions imaginable. Tom's survival and success as an officer in this theatre demonstrated both his personal courage and his ability to maintain morale and effectiveness under extreme stress. The camaraderie he experienced with fellow servicemen from diverse backgrounds created bonds that lasted throughout his life, while teaching him that shared purpose could unite people across class, regional, and cultural differences. These relationships provided a template for the kind of national unity he would later inspire during the COVID-19 pandemic, when Britain needed reminding that common challenges could bring out the best in people. His post-war career in the construction industry allowed him to contribute to Britain's reconstruction while applying the leadership and organizational skills developed during military service. The transition from wartime officer to civilian businessman required adaptability and determination, qualities that would serve him well during his long career in building and civil engineering projects across Yorkshire and beyond. Marriage to Billy in 1949 and the subsequent births of his daughters Lucy and Hannah provided Tom with the family stability that anchored his civilian life while giving him new purposes and responsibilities. His approach to fatherhood reflected both his Yorkshire upbringing and his military experience, emphasizing discipline, service to others, and the importance of maintaining standards regardless of circumstances. The decades that followed were marked by steady professional success, community involvement, and the quiet satisfaction of a life well lived according to traditional British values of duty, service, and family responsibility. Tom's retirement years included travel, gardening, and the kind of active engagement with community life that characterized his generation's approach to aging with purpose and dignity. The death of his beloved wife Billy was a devastating blow that tested his legendary optimism and resilience. Grief at such an advanced age could have been overwhelming, but Tom's response demonstrated the mental toughness developed over decades of facing challenges with determination rather than despair. His ability to find meaning and purpose despite profound personal loss would prove crucial in his response to the national crisis that emerged in 2020. His move to live with his daughter Hannah and son-in-law Colin in Bedfordshire provided family support while allowing him to maintain the independence and dignity that were essential to his sense of self. The intergenerational household created an environment where his experience and wisdom were valued while ensuring he received the practical assistance necessary for daily life at his advanced age. The COVID-19 pandemic's arrival in Britain in early 2020 created unprecedented challenges for everyone, but the impact on elderly people like Tom was particularly severe. The combination of health vulnerability and social isolation threatened to make people of his generation feel useless and forgotten at the very time when their wisdom and perspective were most needed. Tom's decision to undertake a charity walk for his 100th birthday emerged from his desire to do something meaningful while recognizing his physical limitations and the constraints of lockdown restrictions. His plan to walk 100 laps of his garden before his centenary celebration was modest in scope but reflected his lifelong belief that individual action could contribute to collective good, regardless of the scale of the gesture. The initial goal of raising £1,000 for NHS charities together reflected both his realistic assessment of what one elderly man could accomplish and his understanding of the financial pressures facing healthcare workers during the pandemic. His military background gave him deep respect for people serving on the front lines of national emergencies, while his own experience of aging made him grateful for NHS care he had received over the years. The timing of Tom's walk, beginning on April 6, 2020, coincided with the darkest period of Britain's first lockdown, when daily death tolls were climbing, the economy was shutting down, and public morale was at its lowest point since World War II. His cheerful determination to complete his charity challenge provided exactly the kind of positive news story that the country desperately needed during this period of fear and uncertainty. His daughter Hannah's decision to share Tom's walk on social media transformed a private family moment into a national phenomenon as people discovered this remarkable centenarian's simple but powerful message of service and optimism. The videos of Tom slowly but determinedly making his way around the garden, walker in hand and military bearing intact, resonated with viewers who saw both vulnerability and strength in his careful progress. The media attention that followed was initially modest but grew exponentially as journalists recognized that Tom's story embodied themes of service, resilience, and community spirit that struck deep chords with audiences hungry for hope and inspiration. His interviews revealed a man whose century of life experience had taught him that difficult times were temporary but that character and community endurance were permanent. His famous motto, "Tomorrow will be a good day," became a national rallying cry because it combined realistic acknowledgement of current difficulties with unshakable faith in eventual improvement. This wasn't naive optimism but hard-won wisdom from someone who had lived through the Great Depression, World War II, and numerous other national crises while maintaining his belief in human goodness and Britain's capacity for recovery. The fundraising totals that began climbing dramatically as Tom's story spread demonstrated the British public's hunger for positive ways to contribute during a period when many people felt helpless in the face of a global pandemic. His challenge provided a focus for charitable giving that combined support for essential workers with celebration of the kind of character and values that represented Britain at its best. The completion of his 100th lap on April 16, 2020, became a national celebration as millions watched the elderly veteran finish his challenge with the same determination he had shown throughout his century of life. The military flyover that honored his achievement provided symbolic recognition of both his wartime service and his contemporary contribution to national morale during another period of national crisis. The final fundraising total of over £32 million represented one of the most successful charity campaigns in British history while demonstrating the power of individual initiative to inspire collective action. Tom's achievement proved that leadership comes in many forms and that sometimes the most effective leaders are those who inspire through example rather than rhetoric or position. His promotion to honorary colonel and his knighthood from Queen Elizabeth II provided formal recognition of his extraordinary contribution to national life while acknowledging that his achievement transcended traditional categories of service or accomplishment. The ceremony at Windsor Castle created a moment of joy and celebration during a period when such moments were rare and precious. The global attention that Tom's story attracted demonstrated how his message of service, optimism, and community spirit resonated beyond British culture to touch universal themes about aging with purpose, finding meaning in difficult circumstances, and the power of individual action to create positive change. International media coverage made him a symbol of resilience and hope for people worldwide facing their own pandemic challenges. His autobiographies Tomorrow Will Be a Good Day became an instant bestseller while providing deeper insight into the experiences and perspectives that shaped his remarkable character. The book revealed someone whose century of life had been marked by consistent adherence to principles of duty, service, and optimism even during the most challenging circumstances. The various honors and recognition Tom received, including Freedom of the City honors and numerous other awards, reflected not just appreciation for his charity work but recognition of his role in reminding the nation of its best values during a period of crisis. His response to these honors demonstrated the humility and grace that had made him so beloved by people across all social and political divisions. His death on February 2, 2021, after contracting COVID-19 and pneumonia, created an outpouring of grief that demonstrated how deeply he had touched the national consciousness during his brief period of fame. The fact that he died from the very disease he had helped fight added poignancy to his story while underscoring the vulnerability of even the most resilient individuals to the pandemic's effects. The state funeral honors accorded to Tom reflected recognition that his contribution to national life during the pandemic had earned him a place among the most significant figures in recent British history. The ceremony at Westminster Abbey provided formal acknowledgement of someone whose informal leadership had unified the country during one of its most difficult periods. The Captain Tom Foundation, established to continue his charitable work, ensures that his legacy extends beyond his individual achievement to create ongoing support for causes he cared about. The Foundation's work with elderly people, support for NHS workers, and promotion of community service reflects his belief that individual actions can contribute to collective well-being when guided by principles of service and compassion. His influence on attitudes toward aging and the potential for meaningful contribution throughout life has been particularly significant, challenging stereotypes about elderly people being burdens rather than resources. Tom's example demonstrated that life experience, wisdom, and determination could be more valuable than physical strength or technological sophistication when addressing community challenges. The inspiration Tom provided to other elderly people facing isolation and purposelessness during the pandemic cannot be measured but has undoubtedly encouraged countless individuals to find their own ways to contribute to community well-being. His example showed that service opportunities exist at every stage of life for those willing to look beyond their own circumstances to identify ways to help others. Today, Captain Tom Moore represents the power of individual action to inspire collective response while demonstrating that the greatest contributions to community life often come from unexpected sources. His story continues inspiring people worldwide while serving as a reminder that age, physical limitations, and modest circumstances need not prevent anyone from making extraordinary contributions to human well-being and hope. From Yorkshire schoolboy to Burma veteran to national treasure, Tom's century-long journey proves that a life lived according to principles of service, optimism, and community responsibility can touch millions of hearts and create lasting positive change. His legacy reminds us that heroes come in all ages and that sometimes the most powerful messages are delivered not through grand speeches or dramatic gestures, but through simple acts of determination, kindness, and faith in tomorrow's possibilities.
Captain Tom proved that age is no barrier to making extraordinary contributions. His century of wisdom and service reminds us that individual actions can inspire millions. Subscribe for more incredible British hero stories. Like if Tom inspired your optimism. Share how we can all serve others.